Like any other country, Canada is going through major changes now. So recently they have announced changes which is going to impact students. They're going to impact people who are on a work permit, and it's also going to impact future students who are planning to move to Canada. So if you're interested in Canada's latest news, make sure you keep watching the video till the end, as I have invited a special guest who's going to do the talking. But before we start, a quick introduction about myself for my new audience. My name is Sarika and I have been living in the UK for the last 14 years. I work full-time in IT, and during my free time, I make YouTube videos. I have two good news to share with you guys as well. First is about study abroad service. You guys already know that I can help you study abroad in any of these listed countries. You simply need to fill the form which is provided in my video description and pinned comment, and my team will reach out to you soon. If you don't hear back from them, you can send me a direct email on yourknowledgebuddy@gmail.com. Second update from me, I'm launching a job assistance service to help you find a job in the UK. I know many of you are struggling to find jobs and need more help navigating the UK job market. I'll assist you from start till the finish, including job searching, networking, and interview preparation. This is a paid service and I will take only a few students to start with. I offer two packages, one for groups and for one, which is more expensive, one-to-one consultation. If you want more details, you can email me with your CV at yourknowledgebuddy@gmail.com. I'm hosting a paid webinar on 29th of September for those people who want to start their career in IT. You can either be in India or UK, Pakistan, or any part of the world. It really doesn't matter, as this webinar will be online, completely remote, so that you can join from the comfort of your home. Also, if you cannot attend, the webinar will be recorded, but you have to book your seat. The links are in my video description and pinned comment. If you cannot find the link, simply comment link and I'll get back to you soon. So without any further delay, let's get started with today's video by inviting Shafoli. Hi Shafoli, welcome to Your Knowledge Buddy, and if you don't mind, can you please introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Hi Sarika, thank you for having me again on your channel. My name is Shafoli Kapoor and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I am located in Toronto, in Canada, and the name of my firm is T.Immigration.
Thank you. So I believe my audience is quite familiar who you are, but I tried to ask for introduction so that if my new audience is watching it, they know where to go if they want any more clarification on Canada related topics. And I'm not an expert. That's why I always invite you. So Shafoli, today's topic is about the major announcement which just happened in Canada, which was related to, I believe, open work permit, PGWP, study permit, and SOWP, and also a few more. So do you mind just giving us a recap of what are those changes and how it's impacting my audience?
Yes, Sarika, we recently had an announcement. It was on September 18th, so about 2-3 days ago, where our immigration minister, Marc made some very, very strong announcements that is definitely going to impact a lot of people, especially international students who are already inside Canada, pursuing their education, new students who will be coming to Canada on, study permits. It's going to definitely impact them. And then, of course, their families as well. Now, the first big change that the minister announced was about the cap on international students. I'm sure your audience knows. I think we talked about it in the past as well, and it was a big news, in the media, that Canada introduced a cap on study permit intake the year 2024. That intake was set at 485,000 applications. The minister on September 18th announced that the cap will further be reduced by 10% in 2025, which means that the new number will be set at 437,000 applications for the year 2025. And they anticipate that in 2026, they're going to stabilize the same number. So it's going to remain around the same cap. Now, the interesting thing here is, and I'm just repeating this again because I don't know if your audience is aware, but Canada never used to have a cap on international students. Like they were always accepting whoever applied, and whoever got an approval, they would accept it. But just this year, with an attempt to reduce the temporary workers and temporary residents in Canada, they've put a cap. So that was the first big change. Another thing, a part of the same change is that up until this year, so for this year's cap, masters and PhD students were not included in the cap. If a person who's coming to do a master's degree, they were not considered in the cap. And they also did not need something called as a provincial attestation letter. But in 2025, starting the winter intake, even master's students will have to submit provincial attestation letter, which means that they will also be a part of that cap. So it's not going to be a free flow. And I think the reason behind this is that ever since IRCC announced that last year, that there'll be a cap, a lot of people started applying under master's stream. So then the government realized, okay, they found another loophole. Now let's put a cap on the masters as well. So now master's students will need to submit the provincial attestation letter as well, and they'll be considered in the cap. The second announcement that we heard was about postgraduate work permits. Starting November 1st, postgraduate work permit is basically a work permit that international students get after they complete their study in Canada, depending on the DLI, the college that they're coming to, depending on the length of their study, and also depending on certain other eligibility criteria, like they were a full-time student or not and stuff like that. But anybody who was doing it through a public college or a university was eligible to apply for a PGWP. Come November 1st, students will have to submit, when they apply for their postgraduate work permit, they will have to submit a language assessment test. So it could be an English language assessment test or a French language assessment test based on their proficiency in either one of those languages. If there's somebody who's graduating from a university, they will have to submit a CLB 7 level. So Canadian language benchmark is CLB. Level 7 result for either one of the exams for English or French with the PGWP application, or a CLB 5 if they're graduating from a college, like a diploma or a certificate program. So then they'll have to do it, show a minimum language proficiency of CLB 5. The reason government has introduced this is because they want to make sure that only those international students are given postgraduate work permits who will ultimately be able to apply for permanent residence in the future, because 90% of the programs in Canada for PR require you to prove a certain level of English, not just English, proficiency in one of the official languages in Canada. So if you're not proficient in these languages, it's very hard for you to apply for PR. So they want to make sure that not everybody gets PGWP, only those people get PGWP who will ultimately have somewhat chance to apply for PR in the future. Again, the aim here is to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada because there are just way too many.
So is it IELTS accepted, PT accepted, or TOEFL accepted? What are the things accepted in?
So three tests for English are accepted. That's IELTS, SOWP, and PTE core. There's not much clarity yet. They haven't told us yet whether they will also accept the academic versions of these tests. But I will assume that they are expecting general category, because that's what is required for PR. The academic results are only required when you're doing your study permit application. But for PR, it's general. So I'm assuming it's going to be general exam under IELTS, SOWP, or PTE. But obviously, we'll wait for more information. And under French, there are two tests. One is TCF Canada, and the other one is TEF Canada. So the students can do either one of this, and this starts November 1st. So anybody who's applying new or old or whatever, whoever is graduating and applying for a PGWP after November 1st will have to submit the language test results. The third announcement that we heard was about limiting the eligibility of work permits for spouses. Now, this year, we heard in March that IRCC suddenly announced that they're not going to accept international student spouses work permits. Only if you're doing a master's degree or a PhD degree or certain bachelor programs, their spouses will be allowed to apply for work permits. That was in March of 2024. Now, because there were people who found the loophole and then started applying for master's degree, IRCC now said that they will limit the eligibility of spouses to only spouses of international students who are pursuing a master's degree of 16 months or longer. Because in Canada, 1-year master's degrees are very popular as well. So if you're doing anything more than 16 months, your partner's spouses will be eligible to get a work permit. If it's under 16 months, spouses are not eligible. Again, they've not announced the dates when this will be implemented, but with how Canada is going right now, it can literally be like tomorrow. Like literally in the morning, they'll say, today, this is happening. That is what they've been doing. Like they've been dropping bombs all around. So it feels like we're sitting in a war zone right now. But that's another one that's coming. Then another update regarding the spousal open work permit was that they're going to limit the eligibility. There were two kind of people whose spouses could apply for work permits. One, who were international students, their spouses could get it. And then there were workers whose spouses could get it. They already limited international students, but there was no limitation on work permit holder spouses. They could still apply for work permit. Now they said that they are going to limit that category as well, and only spouses of workers who are working in management and professional occupations or in occupations that are considered as labor market shortage sectors. Only spouses of those workers will be allowed to come to Canada on work permits.
So the profession of the main applicant is not the of the spouse.
No, not of the spouse, of the main applicant.
Main
So right
applicant.
now, the eligibility for work permit for spouses of workers in Canada is that the work permit holder in Canada. So let's assume I am a work permit holder in Canada. I work as an HR manager. In order for my spouse to come to Canada to work, I had to have a job offer, like a job, and I had to prove that I'm working, and my partner could apply for a work permit. Even if I was working as coffee shop supervisor, right? My partner should still come and apply for a work permit. But now going forward, they are going to limit it to only spouses of work permit holders who are working in professional and management occupations and labor market shortages occupations. We don't know what those industries are going to be. They haven't given out the list. So we do have a shortage list right now for 2024, based on which people are getting, occupation-based draws and express entry. But we don't know what the new list is going to be. So we're going to wait for more updates on RCC on that particular topic. So yeah, that update is coming. So not everybody's spouses will be eligible. Another thing here, Sarika, is that in between, I think it was last year when IRCC said, so back in the day, like last year, spouses of work permit holders could come only if their partner, so person in Canada, was working in a tier O, 1, 2, or 3 occupation. Okay.
Right, okay.
Then last year they said even tier 4 and 5 will be included.
Okay.
So basically, cleaner's partner could also come if they're working on a PGWP. There are certain occupations that people were allowed to come in. I don't want to complicate it for your audience because this is complicated. LMI stream, high wage, but tier 4 was also allowed. I know this is confusing. I don't want to confuse, but it was easy. Now it's going to be very, 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 very limited. And again, the reason is just one, because IRCC wants to bring down the current temporary resident population of 6.5 down to 5%. They want to reduce the number of temporary residents. So that means people inside Canada will go back who are not going to transition into PR, and new people will not be permitted to come to Canada until Canada stabilizes the current situation here. Another big update for postgraduate work permits is that starting next year, again, we don't yet have the date, but it is anticipated that it will be for the new intake in January because the current intake is now ongoing. So we're expecting that for the new intake, they're going to announce this, that not everybody will be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. To be eligible for a postgraduate work permit, students should have graduated from a field of study that is linked to occupations in long-term shortages only. So if somebody comes here to do an art and science or a general business program, will no longer be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. Now, you know what the problem with this is Sarika, that there's so much uncertainty now. There are people who are applying for programs in January because obviously you have to apply in advance, right? They don't know if their program will be eligible for a PGWP or not. So there are a lot of changes that are happening in Canadian immigration, and it's high time that people understand that Canada has closed its doors.
I think, you know what, I'm comparing with the changes which recently happened in UK as well. I think UK is also trying to make things now difficult for people to settle down here. They also realize the mistakes which they have done. They also realize the loopholes. So they are trying to bring more strict rules. They have already brought in April this year. And I will not be surprised if they come up with something in coming months like Canada. So I think now both the countries, I believe, they think they have enough immigrants and maybe there are less jobs for those immigrants already. So they are kind of full already.
Well, I think Canadian economy is built on immigrants, right? 1 of 4 people in Canada are immigrants. The issue right now is that in the last 4 years since COVID happened, Canada just opened its doors and it let too many people come in. Of all the people that have come in over the last 4 years, while the temporary resident population kept increasing, but the permanent resident allocation limits did not increase. I mean, they increased, but not as drastically as the population of temporary residents in Canada. Basic logic and common sense is that if there are 2.5 or 3 million temporary residents here in Canada, but overall in the next 1 or 2 years, IRCC is only going to accept 1 million people as PR, and that includes refugees and spousal sponsorships and economic class applications. How are the rest of the 2.5 million people get their PR? They're not going to get it. People need to accept it at this point that there is no point in fist fighting with the government. I understand people's perspective that they have come here and they've spent the money and now they're here and they don't want to go back because they sold everything back home, and what are they going to do back? But what is the option? You came here because the government allowed you to come here. Now the government doesn't want you to be here, and in the last 4 years you've not done enough to enhance your skill set, or you did not do enough to make yourself come to the level that you can contribute to. I'm sorry for saying that, but people have also not done enough to enhance their profiles that today they can compete with the ones who are eligible for those PRs. I still know people who are finding shortcuts. They're doing things that not necessarily they should be doing, and the government knows about it now. They probably even knew about this before when all of this was happening, but at that time the government had a blind eye on it because they were like, we don't care as long as the money is coming in the economy. I don't know if I can say that, but now they care, right? Because now it's election time in Canada, because Canadians are angry. Canadians think that immigrants have taken their jobs. Canadians think that today they can't afford homes here because the inflation is high, the interest rates are so high, the rental market is so expensive, and they're blaming everything on immigration because the immigration numbers are too high, which somewhat is true. The numbers are too high. But again, now if you think from the temporary residents perspective, they didn't force themselves inside. They were allowed to come. So I think it is mismanagement of the government that happened back in COVID, and now they're taking more harsh decisions. That's ultimately, either way, I think it's people at loss, That's exact. But I think the hard truth is that this is going to continue happening. Canadian immigration is going to be very, very difficult until next year. I tell this to my clients all the time that there's no point in fist fighting. If you feel that you're nearing the end of this battle, like the fight, like it's no point fighting and stressing about it. Take a break, think through, work on yourself, work on enhancing your skill set, and then reapply again from outside Canada. Things are going to get better. I have seen the Canadian immigration graph going up and down in the last several years. I've seen times when it was hard to get immigration. I've seen times when it was super easy. And again, we're seeing a time when it's hard. Also, this is the rule of economy as well, right? The economy goes up and down, up and down, crests and troughs. We're just in a phase, we're going downhill, but then there will be an uphill soon. People just need to step back and be like, okay, you know what? This is not the time. We're going to revisit this in a year. But in that 1 year, you work on enhancing your skill set.
Thanks, Shafoli. So guys, if you're watching this video now, you understand, you have some background of why Canada is making such strict rules or why they are bringing it. And if at all you are in Canada or outside Canada, if you need any legal advice or help, you can reach out to Shafoli. All the details about Shafoli is on the screen. It's also in my video description and pinned comment. So go and take some legal help if you are stuck somewhere. Thanks, Shafoli. Thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge with my audience.
Thank you, Sarika.